Well, Candice, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I am so happy to have you here because today we're going to talk about a topic that I said before, it's one of those little strings that people pull on, but they don't really want to dive into this.
Yeah.
Before we get started, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Thanks so much, Henriette, for having me. I'm Candice Friesen from Canada. So I have been a real estate agent for about 14 years. Before that, I got a Bachelor of Commerce from a local university, and I was going to become an accountant. And, that's what my aunt was, and that's somebody I really looked up to. And I did pretty good in math. So I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Not have any kids, just career woman, very driven. And then, of course, never say never. I've got 4 kids now. I got married when I was almost 20, I say, because I did get married young. But yeah, so life's good. Doing the real estate thing, had kids in between. And then, more and more people seem to be asking me after the real estate transaction was done, Candice, you seem to know about money. Like, could I ask you something? And, during a real estate transaction, if you've ever bought or sold, it's a very sort of intense time, right? You're selling an asset that means a lot to you, and there's a lot of emotion tied to it. And you really get to know, for me, my clients well, and as the client, you get to know your realtor quite well because you're spending a lot of time very intensely, and you're looking for, again, the next house that's going to host family gatherings. Your memories are going to be happening in this place, and so a house is a very personal transaction. Or it's something that's very emotional, like you're selling because of death, divorce, all these really hard things and very stressful times in life, right? So through that, you build trust, and that's where people are asking again about money. So just, so often in life, I think you have to see what other people see in you, right? And so I just thought, if some people are asking about this, obviously there's a need, and how many more people can I help? So real estate can be very transactional, but through money coaching, you're changing family dynamics. You're maybe saving a marriage, right? As people figure out the money piece, because that's huge in a relationship, and hopefully impacting the kids and creating that legacy in a family, right? So that's why I got into money coaching. It's really, legacy has been huge for me throughout my life, the importance of it, and that goes back to, my grandparents and the values that have been passed on, right? And so always very future focused, and what's the best for our family, what's the best for, what's coming up, right? So wanting to create that impact, and when you've got a strong family unit, you have strong communities, you have, the ripple just continues, right? So that's a little bit about how I got into this and the reason why.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And that's why I'm so glad you're here today, because when people talk about money, and I know specifically, in relationships, whether it's business or personal relationship, it's almost like it's one of those topics that are taboo.
Yeah,
you can't really talk about it. But then on other occasions in business, this is a topic that really stands out in business. But again, I find that a lot of people shy away from this topic. As an example, because I work with so many women who are in business, one of the things they say they hate doing is their accounts. And funny, you and I were just talking about this because I was just doing my accounts before this recording. But a lot of women have this kind of anxiety and this fear against doing their accounts. But before we dive into this, I think, one of the things that I really want to talk to you is the relationships. When it is personal or in business, what is that kind of relationship that people have and the different dynamics, or as you call it, the money personalities, really?
Yeah, and that's something that we don't recognize, right? Like we talk about personalities, and of course we know that some people you connect with well and some people you don't, and it's not them, it's not you, it's just personality, right? But when it comes to money, like we learn about money from the age of 2 or 3 already, right? And that could be, I had no money, my parents had no money when we were growing up. If money came up, it was a stress topic, it was fighting, it was, there's stress around food because we had to go to food banks, there was no money, there was, you know what I mean? So you're going to naturally, you will carry that with you throughout your life. Or it could just be, I remember when I was a kid asking about, how much was this house that we bought? And my parents said, never ask me that again. So right away when you're shut down as a kid, and that's normal, a lot of people don't talk about this stuff, right? So, but when you're shut down as a kid, you realize, oh, okay, so we don't discuss this. But there's still the question that wasn't answered, right? And so people who are listening might think the same thing. Yeah, like I never was taught about money. I've never been able to figure this out. So like anything that's a mystery, we just kind of go through life our best, but we never kind of feel confident that we can ask about these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, this walks in beautifully hand in hand with what you mentioned earlier when you and I just started talking, is those relationships in particular. And you said it so beautifully earlier, before we hit the recording button. You said, you know, people who go in a relationship, maybe the husband is one who shies away from talking about money, and the wife is the one who grew up talking about money. So there's a clash immediately. And then, you know, equally, it's how do they then teach their kids about money? What are the beliefs that they're going to instill in the children from a young age? Yeah. It's all about these different beliefs that we grew up with, because, you know, if we've been told from a kid, you don't do this and you do this and you don't do that, you do that, then obviously you think that this is the way it's got to be because I've been told this. And this is the same with money. But, you know, oh my gosh, this is a thing that I get so excited about, but equally I get so anxious thinking that people need to learn more about money, especially these days, because, you know, everybody is changing their mindset about going into business and starting their own business, but they're still taking these beliefs about money with them into business. And hands up, I've done exactly the same. It took me quite some time in order to instill new beliefs about money when I started my business. So from your point of view, you know, what are the couple of tips that you can say to people who is starting a business or is already in business, but who's still carrying some of those old money beliefs with them?
Yeah. And, you know, when you go from a 9 to 5 to running your own business, it's very different, right? Like you've never had to invest. So again, if you have been taught, save your money, then when you go into business, it's like, I can't go invest in, you know, another person to help me, or maybe equipment that I really need. That's very scary because I've been told, pay off debt, save money. And those are good things. But when you go into business now, you know, you have to put the cart before the horse, so you have to invest before you make the money sometimes, right? So yeah, it's really difficult, and it's mindset shifts. And sometimes I don't know really if there's a way around that besides education, hiring a coach, and again, investing in yourself, right? That's really what it is. So, you know, having a coach like yourself, it's somebody who's going to ask you those questions, like, you know, have you thought of this? Or, you know, it's normal to feel that way, but other people, they do invest before, you know, you sort of have to before you make the money. And so, you know, if you've never had somebody to teach you that, like I grew up in an entrepreneurial background. So as a kid, you just sort of watch and you hear conversations and you sort of learn this stuff. But if you didn't, you got to learn it somewhere. And I think as well, I don't know if I want to stereotype women necessarily, but sometimes women, you know, you want to talk it out, and you turn to your spouse and you're like, hey, this is what I'm going through in my business now. And it's not their role to be solving your problems in your business. Their role, what they signed up for, was to be your spouse. Yes. So it's really important to be careful sometimes in business to, you know, not saying don't talk about your business with your spouse or keep things secret or anything like that. That's not what's important. But, you know, they're not supposed to be your counselor. They're not supposed to be your coach to help you get through whatever you're going through. So I think kind of keeping those things separate when you're in business is really important.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. You know, and I think something else which you said there, it's very valuable. It's about picking those conversations. As an example, like you just said, you've got this issue in your business, and maybe you know that you need to go and invest in a coach or in buying a certain product or in buying a certain course in order to move your business forward. Yeah. And what I find a lot of women in particular do is they go and talk to their spouses about this and say, listen, I've got to go invest money in order to do this with my business.
Yeah.
the spouse doesn't see it the way they see it, and they immediately say, oh my gosh, you can't spend that much money on your business, this is crazy. And immediately that reinstills almost that belief that they have of, oh, I can't spend money, I need to save money for the business, I can't spend money for the business. So basically what I would like to say is choose the conversations well, and choose the people who you need to have the specific conversation with. So you just nailed it on the head there. I mean, for me in particular, when it comes to business, I have so many friends who are also business owners that I rather go and talk to when it comes to business conversations. And yes, my husband knows what's going on, but I'm not asking him for advice. And this is just how we are. And other people won't agree with this, but this is how we've kind of set up our relationship between this distinction between personal and business. But the aspect behind it is very much about the belief system. And I've heard something beautiful. I spoke to somebody before who's actually a broker, and she said that there's this, I can't remember the guy's name, there's this Japanese guy, and he said something beautiful. He said, money is always a flow. It's an energy flow, which we know. And he said, you always have to do this. Arigato in, arigato out. So thank you for the money coming in. Thank you for the money going out. And I think if you have that kind of flow with receiving, being thankful for it, but also being thankful for what you're spending on. And I'm not just meaning on spending, I mean, paying electricity bills, paying a VA, paying the broadband, whatever money you're spending on, you need to be thankful for spending that money as well. Because again, it creates that kind of energy almost in the flow of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so. We've talked about the business part of it, but the personal is the same. So we could sometimes make those connections with work, and hiring a coach makes sense, but it's the same personally, right? If you have a conflict between the two of you, or you grow up very different, right away it's like, okay, well, we don't have problems, I don't need to see a counselor. Like there's this taboo against counselors, or, oh, it's not that bad. But hiring somebody to facilitate that discussion, which is what money coaching, a part of it is, right? Is, okay, well, have you thought of it this way? Because when you're in the conflict, it's just you against them. That's it, right? And so it's really hard to see the other side. But when you have somebody else say, well, this is how it's coming across, or have you thought of it this way? Or, from their background, this is why they're thinking that. It's really, a lot of the times with conflict is not be able to see the other person's perspective, right? And again, hearing the discussion, it makes sense, but when you're in it, it's really hard, any conflict. And again, like recognizing, like you said about the energy around money, there's happiness around money, there's stress, there's anger. Everyone has emotion around money, right? It's not just an object. But understanding why and where that emotion is coming from. So if I'm stressed out at work and I go spend a whole bunch of money, now I'm like, why did I go buy all that clothes? I don't need it. Now I'm stressed out because I spent money. I've got more debt to deal with. We're not recognizing what the real problem is, which is usually not the money itself. It's how we're dealing with some type of issue.
Yes. And this is very much where that guilt comes in. It's like, oh my gosh, I just spent so much money, or I just spent money on something. Now I feel guilty. And and you're so right. It's not just to do with the money thing. It's very much to do with something separately to that. There's a stress or an anxious element to that. I mean, I remember the other day I had to spend quite a fair bit of money on my business, and I did feel guilty about it. And I was like, oh, did I really just spend this much money? And I was like, no, this is the right thing, because I can see the return on my investment. Yes, it is going to work, so don't feel guilty. But again, we are our own worst enemies, because it's so hard for us to say to other people, this is what you need to do, but sometimes it's very hard for ourselves to listen to our own advice. But that guilt element is still there, and it it's something you've got to manage, really, I think.
Well, and it can go the opposite way too. It can be, I've had a great month, so I'm going to reward myself, and I'm going to go spend a whole bunch of money because I deserve it and I did well. But in the end, after you do whatever you do, has that really impacted your life enough that it was worth that money, right? And I'm not saying that we never need rewards. We do, but, going to buy the new car, you got the new car smell and it's really exciting. But after that, you've got $60,000 or $100,000 worth of debt that is getting you nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So, and yet that's something that people will look to as a prestigious item. It makes me feel good. It shows I have success. But in the end, you have a lot of debt, right? So, it's all these different things that there's no one right answer, but we just have to be really mindful of like, okay, is this actually making my life that much better? Is it really impacting my life? And it's always decisions. It's always trade-offs, right? Like, is it better for me to go on a few trips? Is that going to be more impactful in my life, or is a car? It's a different answer for everybody, but you need to be true to you and what's important to you versus what your brother's doing, what your neighbor's doing, what your friends are doing, and the old keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is also where that very thin line is, where you mentioned it earlier, where addiction comes in. People get addicted to spending money as well, and just basically digging a hole for themselves and, ending up having more and more debt. And then they just kind of like cover it with straw or something and going, I'm not going to look at this hole, out of sight, out of mind. But that is an addiction. That is something as well. So there's a very thin line between, rewarding yourself and spending money versus getting addicted and keep on spending money. Yeah. So I think, this kind of nicely walks hand in hand with the other thing that I wanted to ask you, because as business women, and, even in personal life, you've got to keep a tab on what your expenses are and what your income is, whether it's through a salary or whether it's through your business. But you've got to keep a tab on this. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, because how many people actually keep spreadsheets of what comes in and what goes out? For business, yes, you've got to do it. But like I mentioned earlier, so many women that I speak to don't like doing their accounts. But that also means that they don't have a forecast of what the money would look like coming into their business and going out. So are there kind of tips or something that you can talk around this when it comes to just, taking action and keeping a real idea of what goes in and what goes out?
Yeah, I don't, I guess I don't sugarcoat, and I don't, romanticize the whole thing. It's very easy to be like, oh, I want to start this business because, again, I'm going to be, it's going to make me this grand, person, influencer, whatever it is, right? Sometimes we go into things for the wrong reason, but it's the same thing with the business. Like, if you're doing it for if you want to get ahead and you want to grow this business, you got to take it serious, right?
Yeah.
And I compare it often to the gym because that's something everyone can relate to, but I can't go to the gym once and I've got a perfect body, I've got great abs. It just doesn't work, right? And so the things that really matter to you, you have to be diligent. You've got to be disciplined about. I don't think there's any way around it. We're always looking for the shortcut, but there really is no shortcut. So if I want to have a great body, I got to get to the gym. I have to eat well the majority of the time. Not every day, but the majority of the time. And it's the same with business. If you want to have growth, if you want to continue to see, sales, grow by 10% every year or whatever that number is, or you want to make sure that you're cutting back expenses that you don't need in your business, there's no way it'll happen if it's not a focus.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where you got to put pen to paper. You literally just got to stay on top of it and know exactly what's going on. Don't think, literally see it, put it down on paper and know exactly what's going on. And it's very good to do forecasting as well. Look at what the future holds, whether it's personal or business. You've got to do a forecast in order to see what am I expecting that will come in and what is expected to go out. So you have an idea. And this equally helps you kind of get out of that fear, anxiety, but like, where's my next client coming from? Where is my next payment's going to come from? How am I going to cover the rent next month? All of those things, because it just gives you a better grasp and it makes you feel a lot more in control as well when it comes to money and it comes to your personal finances. Oh my gosh, Candice, this is something I can talk about forever. The other question I have for you is, for you as a money coach, just tell us a little bit about how you work. What is it that you do in order to help people who's got these kind of beliefs about money? What is it that, what is your role really? So people can just understand a little bit about how you can help them.
I think that it really depends where people are at, but we try and look full, like a full circle look at everything. So that could be, have you tackled a will? Have you not? Have you done retirement planning? Have you not? Right? Like, so often people have kind of a grasp on some things, but maybe not everything. Or, well, I did my will 10 years ago, but yeah, it's been 10 years. Like, how did the years fly by? I should probably relook at that again. Yeah, I kind of do budgeting, but not really. Okay, so, where are things not being looked at, right? So it's really, first of all, taking an overall assessment of where it's at, looking at everything. Then we start actually going through stuff and taking action. So again, I had a woman who was like, yeah, I really need to, my family has a cabin and we need to be making some decisions about what that would look like in the future. So, it's conversations often, again, that people avoid. But if you don't plan things ahead, when the time comes, it's a lot harder, right? Yeah. So start having some of the conversations, to start thinking about some of these things is really important. But it's stuff that people avoid. So I think the biggest thing in hiring any coach is that it helps you take action on stuff that you've been avoiding. So as a couple, maybe you've avoided talking about the money stuff and you just kind of, we both spend, or we both have separate accounts. I'm not a person that says you should have joint or separate. You need to find what works for you as a couple again. But, whatever that looks like, sometimes, again, we just get so comfortable. But if we want to reach a goal, if we want to have better finances, if we want to, plan for retirement and we never really have, something has to change, right? Sometimes people maybe should be applying for jobs and trying to get ahead financially that way, bring in more income, but they haven't, right? The next person, yeah, well, my business is at this point. Okay, well, what would it look like to grow your business by 10%, right? So it's just asking those questions. So sometimes we're looking at saving again or adjusting the budget. Sometimes we're looking at the money that's coming in. Or yeah, we haven't done anything with the kids yet. Okay, do you want to set up some, plans for their education? Like, what does that look like? And then let's make a decision.
Yes.
Because that's, again, the hardest part, right? We read a book and we're like, this is good, and we do nothing. So yes. The coach is all about taking action and finally getting some of this stuff done. So I never work with people for their whole life, right? It's a season. So you make some decisions, you do some stuff, and then in a few years, okay, well, we should look at that again, right? With somebody independent to see how we're doing.
Yeah. And I love how you work, because, it's very much a thing about discovering what is that thing that they need work on. So many people would even say, yeah, I've got money issues, or I don't know what to do about this or that. But here's the thing, for those of you listening or watching this video, you might be thinking about all of this talks going on in your head when it comes to money. And you're like, yeah, but I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what I need to look out for. And it's like the good old saying, you don't know what you don't know. So my best advice is that you guys get in contact with Candice. And basically what we're going to do is I'm going to put a link below in my show notes where you can have a free strategy call with Candice. So you can literally go and have a conversation with her to kind of discover what it is that you need to do, or what it is that you might need to look at and concentrate in order to take that next step forward. And then she helps you take that action. She kind of guides you and says, maybe this is what you need to do. And I think this is the great thing of what you're doing, Candice, because you're not just saying to them and helping them discover what is the first step. You're also helping them take that step and guiding them throughout the process, where I think a lot of people would be so scared of going, okay, now I know what I need to do, but I'm so scared of doing this on my own. Yeah. So it makes so much sense. And you know what, this is why I feel that money coaches are so important. Oh my gosh, you guys don't get enough, how can I say, visibility. The spotlights need to shine on money coaches, because you offer so much value to people, helping them. And I think, from a mindset point of view, but also from an action point of view,
Yeah.
Anybody who's listening to this, if you struggle with money, if your mindset is set differently around money, and especially if you feel it's not a conversation you can easily have, then you might need to go and talk to Candice, because once you've kind of set your mindset, swapped it around, have the positive mindset, have the right mindset when it comes to money, when it comes to the flow of money, oh my gosh, it can open up so many opportunities for you, not just personal, but for business as well, which is why I'm so excited, because I went through the exact same thing. I had to go through, breaking down all of those beliefs, change my mindset. And as soon as I did, my business went from strength to strength. But it's because I had to let go of those beliefs that I grew up with. And I say this with, hand on my heart, bless my parents. They're amazing. They've done amazing things for me. But it's not just parents, it's teachers, it's friends. When you're in corporate world, as an example, you get so many different aspects and beliefs build up over money. You've just got to swing it around, and make it work for you at the end of the day. So
it's true.
Yeah. So as I mentioned at the bottom in my show notes, we'll have the link to basically book a free strategy call with Candice. And I'm sure she'd love to have you there, and she'd love to help you and guide you along the way as well. I promise you that if you have this call with Candice, you are going to love yourself for doing it, because she is really, really going to help you. Only because I know I've done the same thing, and I can't speak highly enough of, working with a money coach. So by all means, go and have a chat with Candice. And then also what I'll do there is I'll have her website details there, so you can obviously just have a look at Candice's website there, and make contacts through her website as well if you need to. But Candice, thank you so much for your time being here. I really appreciate it. And I just feel like, we can talk about this forever, because I'm passionate about the money mindset in particular. Are there any last tips, any last words that you would like to add?
I think the main thing is just don't struggle through it anymore. Whatever it is, so often we just kind of put up with it in life. But, like anything, when you can get past a struggle, it's so much better on the other side. So whatever it is that's a struggle, just commit to being like, this is it. We need to get past this, or I need to get past this, or for my business, I need to finally just ask the right person to get past whatever that is, right? So that's the main thing, I think, is just take action and get past the struggles, because it's always better on the other side. So just do it.
Oh, bless you. Well, Candice, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure you and I will be in touch fairly soon again. But thank you so much for your time and being here and sharing all your expertise.
No problem. Thanks. Take care.